This dog ran away from home because his owner was hitting him all the time. When he finally found some people who were willing to help him, they discovered that this dog had been hit so many times that now he didn't even know how to walk anymore. But these people didn't give up on him. Keep watching to find out how they changed his life. This is the story of a little dog named Lucky. He was born into a family with 4 other puppies and 3 other dogs. They lived in a small house with a large yard, but the place looked pretty abandoned. The grass was very tall, and the house had a lot of garbage outside. There were also several broken chairs and sofas, but no one lived there. Lucky had no idea why. One day when he got a little older, he wanted to go outside to play. One of the old dogs showed him how to open the front door, and Lucky went out for the first time. It was huge. He had never seen anything like it before. He could feel the wind in his fur and smell hundreds of new things. He wanted to explore everything. Lucky sniffed around in the tall grass and saw something brown. At first, he thought it was a dead animal, but then he heard some squeaking sounds. A small mouse came out of the hole, and Lucky immediately started barking at it. The mouse turned around and ran back into its hole. Lucky felt bad because he couldn't catch such a small animal, and that's when he heard some footsteps near the house. It was an older man who opened the front door. He had a beer in one hand and a pack of cigarettes in the other. Lucky barked at the man, but he just ignored the dog and went out to the yard. He sat down on one of the broken sofas and started drinking his beer. Lucky was still angry, so he ran towards the man and bit his leg. The man screamed, "What are you doing, you stupid dog?" and punched Lucky right in the nose. The dog yelped in pain and ran away as fast as he could. He kept running until he reached a forest nearby. Lucky was scared and didn't want to go back home. He spent the night hiding behind a tree and fell asleep while shivering. In the morning, he woke up and realized he had to find food. Lucky returned to the house to look for some leftovers, but the man wasn't there. Lucky went inside and found some dog food in a bowl. He ate everything in seconds, but he was still hungry, so he went out again to look for food. He was walking on the street when suddenly a woman stopped her car and asked, "Hey, little dog, do you want some food?" She took Lucky to a nearby park and gave him some burgers. Then she stroked his head and said, "You're a good boy, aren't you?" Lucky had never experienced kindness from humans before, so he felt a little scared. But the woman was very patient and stayed with him for a while. She even played fetch with him. She looked at Lucky's collar and saw that it said Bruno. But Bruno wasn't the dog's real name. His mother used to call him Lucky. The woman liked that name. So from that moment on, she called him Lucky. At first, the dog didn't want to go near the woman, but after she petted him for a few minutes, he became much more relaxed. Suddenly, another woman approached them and said, "Is that Lucky?" "Yes, I found him on the street. Do you know him?" "Oh, yes. We've been looking for him everywhere. Can you come home with us, please?" They arrived at a beautiful house with a big garden. The women opened the door and said, "You can play in the garden, Lucky. We have lots of toys for you." But the dog was too scared to move. He stayed in the corner and whimpered. The women understood that he needed some time alone, so they left him in the garden and closed the door. All that day, Lucky stayed in the same corner without moving. He drank some water from the fountain and ate some dog food, but he still felt scared. He didn't understand why these women wanted to be friends with him. If the last human almost killed him, the next day the women came back to the garden. One of them threw a ball and said, "Come on, Lucky, let's play." But the dog only looked at her and wagged his tail slowly. One of the women knelt down in front of him and said, "It's okay if you don't want to play. Just take your time and get to know us." She took her phone out of her pocket and showed him some pictures. Do you recognize any of these places? Lucky looked at the photos, and suddenly he remembered. These were the same places where he had gone to look for food. The woman had found him on the same street. "Do you live around here?" she asked. Lucky barked twice, and the woman smiled. "That means yes, right?" She hugged Lucky and said, "We're going to take care of you from now on. Don't worry." At first, the dog didn't want to eat or drink, but the women didn't give up. They stayed with him in the garden for hours, until finally he ate a little bit of food. After a month of taking care of Lucky, the women noticed that he couldn't walk properly. He would often fall to the ground and couldn't stand up again. They took him to the vet, who told them that he had been hit so many times that his legs were permanently injured. "Is there anything we can do?" one of the women asked. "Well, I think he'll need a wheelchair to be able to walk," the vet replied. Lucky was very sad. He missed being able to run and play like the other dogs, but the women promised to make him the happiest dog in the world, and they kept their promise. From that day on, they took Lucky everywhere with his new wheelchair. He could go to the park, ride in the car, and even go swimming. Lucky loved spending time with the women who saved him. He never forgot what they had done for him, and he always showed them lots of love. But unfortunately, not everyone is so lucky. Sadly, Lucky isn't the only dog in the world that has been mistreated by humans. This is the story of a dog who was thrown off a cliff by his owner. The man in the video is David. He was a military veteran who adopted a German Shepherd named Doe, but he started treating the dog badly. One day, he even threw him off a cliff. Fortunately, a person filmed the entire incident and exposed the man's cruelty. But this was just the beginning of the story. David justified his actions by saying that he was trying to train the dog to jump over obstacles. But people on the internet weren't convinced. They thought that he simply hated his dog. A local animal rights organization learned about the case and offered David a deal. If he agreed to stop mistreating the dog, they would keep him as his pet. But if he refused, they would take Doe away from him forever. Before Doe's owner could answer, the dog approached him and licked his hand. David was deeply moved by Doe's reaction. He realized that the dog hadn't hated him, despite everything he had done. That's why he accepted the deal. Do you think David really loved his dog? Let us know in the comments.